On visitor's day, I decided to go see my visitor. I thought it would be Amy or my father, but it was Debbie. "What are you doing here?" I asked. She looked so sweet and beautiful. I wanted to hug her, but I was playing angry Ray. "Ray, I love you, and I've made a lot of mistakes. I brought you some pictures from the kids. They miss you very much, and so do I." Tears streamed down her face. "Look, I have a different life now. Just take care of my kids and tell them I love them." She handed me some baby pictures. They were their last school pictures and they looked so cute. "Ray, I didn't sign the divorce papers. I will wait for you. I don't care how long it takes. I made a terrible, terrible mistake, but I know we can get through it if you still love me." I didn't know what to say. Of course, I felt that I still loved her. I just hated what she had done and the fact that she didn't believe me. I got up and walked back to my cell. I left her by the window and didn't look back. I was working in the kitchen and overheard a conversation about a guy going after Killer for killing his friend. They were going to try to corner him in the dining room the next night. There was no one I could tell about it without being a snitch. I decided to tell Killer. It would make me part of his group. I didn't want to be part of any group, but I couldn't let this man die the next day. Killer wasn't sure whether to believe me. I told him to believe what he wanted to believe. I didn't say anything to the guards, but to him. I guess I was taking a risk. The killer looked me in the eye. He said you can tell a lot about a person by looking into their eyes. He told me to stay away from him the next day. He would control the situation so that no one would know that I had told him about it. I couldn't believe what he had done. He put two thin, hard-cover books under his shirt, covering his kidneys with them. Behind him at another table sat three of his group. When the prisoner came up behind him and straddled Killer's chest, he plunged the knife into his kidneys, but of course hit the book. Knives were usually pretty blunt. They pierced the skin but didn't go through the book. Killer's friends grabbed the prisoner and started beating him until the guards came to the table. The prisoner was taken to solitary confinement, and Killer sat down again to finish his dinner. I cannot believe that he remained calm during the whole ordeal. After that day, Killer talked to me on a fairly regular basis. When we talked in the cell, he was a completely different person than he was outside the cell. Outside the cell, he was as tough as could be. Everyone knew he was the leader of his group. He asked me about Debbie and the children. He told me that he had 3 grown children, but of course they never came to see him since he had killed their mother. He said that his youngest daughter, Angie, was on his side. She knew that her mother was the cause of the family problems. She wrote to him regularly, but he forbade her to come and visit. He didn't want other inmates to see her and possibly endanger her. I could tell he really loved his daughter. He smiled when he told me she was a lawyer. I told him my whole pathetic story about how Sandy had set me up and also set Debbie up. "Do you still love her?" Killer asked me. "Yes, I think so, but at the same time I hate what she did to our family." "Does she still love you?" "She says she loves me, but I can't forgive her." "Why not?" "Look where you are now. You've hit rock bottom, kid. If there was a woman in the world who loved me and said she'd wait for me, I'd be the happiest man in the world. What about mistrusting me, not trusting me, and having sex with another man? Hell, you killed a man and your wife for the same thing, and I regret it every day of my life. I regret not giving her a second chance and getting my family back. Don't get me wrong, Ray, don't hold a grudge. It will kill you ever so slowly." He gave me something to think about. Is he right? What would I do when I got out? I had no job, no future, and, right now, no family. The next month I had another visitor. Debbie came back. She smiled at me, and there were tears in her eyes. "The kids drew you some more pictures." She put them in the tray, and I looked at them. They showed a picture of Dad, Mom, and the 2 kids. I guess the kids still saw us as a family. They miss you, Ray. God, I miss you. Will you ever be able to forgive me, and can we be a family again? I promise I'll do whatever it takes. I don't talk to Sandy or Bob anymore after what she did to us. I'm sorry for not trusting you. I thought she didn't believe me once. So the next time someone says something, she'll probably believe them again instead of me. Deb, I've been doing a lot of thinking. I want to forgive you, but I don't know if I can. Seeing you with Bob, I can't get it out of my head. Did you really like him? No, I hated it. That's why I threw up. When you walked in, I saw the look on your face and I felt sick. I realized what I did was wrong when I saw you. Of course, I can never take it all back. God, I wish I could. I never would have done it if I hadn't been so drunk. I only want one man, and that's you, Ray, the father of our two children. A couple weeks later, I had another visitor. Amy came to see me. Ray, remember when I told you that Deb had stopped seeing Sandy? I was driving by the house and saw Sandy and Bob going into the house. I don't know why they were there, so I kept driving. I just thought you should know. I was confused again. Had Deb lied to me again? I was ready to forgive her and try to make our life work again. I know Amy wouldn't lie to me. I had to find out why Deb was seeing Susan and Bob again. About a month later, Killer and I got to talking, and he said he felt he owed me for what I had done for him. He said he had been a lawyer before prison and had some connections. He was going to see if he could get me out of the parole program. I didn't know whether to believe him, but he never lied to me. It may seem strange to say that about a criminal, but I respected Killer. I often thought about what a good lawyer he must have been. His speech and stature demanded respect. I knew it was best not to ask any questions about his statement. I took him at his word. A few weeks later, I was called to the warden's office where the parole board was meeting. The first person to speak was the prison governor. Mr. Harper, we have a parole application for you. I don't know who you're familiar with, but we've been asked to speak with you. After reviewing your file, we saw that you had a hard time adjusting for the first few months. Is that true? Yes, sir. I guess I wasn't cut out for prison life, but I tried to adapt. If you had gotten out earlier, where would you have lived and how would you have survived? I had to think fast. I knew this was a make or break question. Well, sir, I have a sister who is also my best friend. She and her husband said that when I get released, I can live with them until I get back on my feet. Aren't you married, Mr. Harper? Yes, sir, but we were in the process of divorcing when I was sentenced. At this point, I'm not sure how things are going to work out with him. I'm just trying to be honest with you. We thank you for your honesty. We knew you had broken up and we wanted to see how honest you were with us. Sir, as for the job, my previous employer said I was a good worker and to come to him when I was released. What are your chances of going back to prison? We don't look our best when a convict we released early goes back in. I promise you, sir, that I never want to see those prison walls again. Go back to your cell, Mr. Harper, and we'll get back to you by the end of the month. Yes, sir, and thank you for at least considering me for parole. I went back to the cell, and Keeler asked me how it had gone. I told him what I had told the council and asked him if he had anything to do with it. You never know, but if you're released early, I'll expect a box of cigarettes a week to be put on my account. He laughed. Debbie came back a few days later and said someone from the parole board was in the house. Are you going to be paroled? She asked. What did they want? What did they say? I asked nervously. How are we settling in, and will you be able to live there? I told them we broke up, but I'd love to have you back, she said rather nervously. I changed the subject. You told me you stopped seeing Sandy. Have you been seeing her? She's my sister. I don't see her that often. I interrupted her. And Bob, have you seen him lately? Why are you asking me these questions? She did look nervous. You can't be trusted. You said you wouldn't see Sandy, but she and Bob were in the house. Did something happen with you and Bob again? Is that why you're worried about parole? Tell your damn lover Bob that when I get out, I'll finish work, and if you're having fun with him in the meantime, I'll take care of you too. Deb jumped up and ran out of the visitor's room. I knew my thoughts were right. I was ready to go back to the same damn situation that had brought me here in the first place. I had no intention of killing anyone. I just wanted to give them a good scare. I called my sister Amy, and she came over to see me. I told her about the conversation with Deb, and she said she felt really sorry for me. She said the parole board came to see her, and she told them I could stay here as long as I needed to. Her husband Kenny was there, and he said I was welcome there. Do you know if they called Mr. Parker about my job? Yes, that's right. And he said you could go back to your old job. You were one of the best workers. Gosh, Amy, you've given me hope. I hope I don't get rejected. It won't. They told me that since you have a place to live and a job, you'll probably be released at the first of the month. She began to cry. Amy was right. I got a call saying I would be released next week. I was given the name of the lawyer who would be handling my case. I was to report to the agency first thing after my release. I didn't understand why I had to meet with an attorney and not a parole officer. I was told that the law firm was the one that arranged my release. They were supposed to meet with me, fill out my forms, explain my parole situation, and then send me to a parole officer. I thanked Killer, and he reminded me about the cigarettes. I told him they were coming. Honestly, I don't know if he had anything to do with my parole, but it was worth a box of cigarettes a week just to be free. When I went outside the gate, my sister Amy was standing there crying. I hugged her and gave her a brotherly kiss. Welcome back, brother. I walked into Amy's house, and her husband greeted me. I realized that I was very welcome there. Of course, I asked about Debbie, and Amy told me after talking to her in jail that she had contacted a lawyer and signed the papers to finalize the dissolution of the marriage. It seems my thoughts about Deb were correct, but now I was a free man. I knew I had to go to Deb's house and make an appointment to see the kids. I called first to make sure she was home. I didn't want any big surprises and to end up back in jail. I tried to explain to her that I wasn't coming over to cause trouble. We could even talk on the porch. I just wanted to make arrangements to see the kids on a regular basis. She agreed to see me, but said she would call the police if I started making a disturbance. When I pulled up to the house, my children ran up to me screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, you're back." I grabbed them and hugged them. God, I miss them so much. I talked to them for a few minutes and told them to ride their bikes, and my mom and I would sit on the porch and watch them. What do you want, Ray? You've made it clear that we're never going to be a family again. We're moving on with our lives. Debbie, these are my children too, and I want them to be a part of my life. I was ready to forgive you, but you lied to me again. You just had to go back to Bob and Sandy. I know what kind of people they are and who they socialize with. Ray, you were in prison and I was lonely. Don't mess with my head. I know you slept together. I don't care who you're having fun with. Shove goddamn Bob up your ass if you haven't already. I'm here to tell you that if I find out that my children are subjected to this perverted lifestyle, I will do everything in my power to take them away from you. Do you understand? This is not just an empty threat. My children mean a lot to me, and I want them to have a good life. Ray, I would never do anything to hurt my children. Already, you ruined our family because of damned Bob. I'm going to make sure my kids stay away from people like that. Tomorrow I will meet with my new lawyer and find out what my rights are. I don't trust or believe you anymore. You showed me your true colors. I left you, but we have 2 children and I will make sure they grow up in a good environment. I promise you, Ray, I won't get sucked into that lifestyle. Yes, I've tried it. I admit it, but it's not for me or my kids. You'll see. I've changed. I don't trust you, and remember, actions speak louder than words. My kids came over and I talked to them about school and what they were doing. I told them that I was living at Aunt Amy's, but that I would soon find an apartment closer and spend more time with them. I kissed and hugged them goodbye and headed back to Amy's. The next morning I went to the law firm that represented me. Going there felt strange. I hadn't even talked to the lawyer who had gotten me parole. I went to the receptionist and pulled out the card I had been given by the parole board. May I speak to Mr. A.J. Brady, please? I have an appointment. I'm Ray Harper. The receptionist smiled at me. A mess? Brady will see you shortly. Please have a seat, Mr. Harper. I asked myself if she said Miss Brady. The card said A.J. Brady, so I assumed it was a man. I was sitting there pondering when a beautiful woman in a dark blue suit walked up to me. She had a smile, dimples, and shoulder-length dark brunette hair. I couldn't help but stare at her as she held out her hand to greet me. Ray Harper, I presume, she said, extending her hand for a shake. I'm A.J. Brady. I know we haven't met yet, but I've been asked to look into your how shall I put this situation, and I've come to the conclusion that you didn't have a fair defense, and we'll talk about the rest. If you'll step into my office, please. Mary, I don't want to be disturbed. Please take messages to all calls and tell them I will call them back. Yes, Miss Brady, the receptionist replied. I followed her into her office. If she had asked me to, I would have followed her into the abyss. She was a very beautiful woman. Well, Mr. Harper, we meet at last. Please call me Ray if you don't mind. I owe you my life, and I have no idea why you did it. Mr. Harper, I mean Ray, a good friend of mine asked me to look into your case. Your lawyer let you plead guilty instead of trying to help you. You had a lot of extenuating circumstances that he never mentioned. You had just signed the divorce papers. The person who caused your divorce came to the place where you were. You were not in your right mind at the time. These and other factors would have gotten you a lesser sentence. Of course, you committed assault, but the sentence was too harsh. I pointed that out to the parole board and they agreed with me to some extent. I asked, why, Miss Brady? Why me? Who asked you to help me? Can I call you anything other than Miss Brady? After all, I feel like you saved my life and gave it back to me. Look, Ray, I was asked to help you and I did. Is it really that important that you know who hired me? As for my name, I guess you can call me AJ. I became friends with a man in prison. They called him Killer. He told me he would help me get parole. He also told me that he had a favorite daughter named Angie and that she was a lawyer. I wondered if you were the beautiful daughter he was talking about. My new attorney's eyes glistened. She looked at me eye to eye and said, Yes, Killer. I mean Dave. My father's name is Dave, and he asked me to handle your case. He's never asked me to do that before, so he must have really liked you. I was surprised when he asked, but for my father's sake, I'd do anything. AJ, can I call you Angie? I know we just met and you're my lawyer, but you're too pretty for me to call you AJ. And I definitely don't want to call you Miss Brady. What does AJ's even mean? Angelina Juanita Brady is my name. Now you know why I chose AJ. Listen, Ray, there are a few things we need to discuss. Would you have lunch with me? I asked. Ray, I don't meet with clients. It's not a date. It's lunch. I have to go to work in a couple hours and I need to eat. If you don't want to call it a date, you can pay for it and call it a business meeting. You do take clients to lunch sometimes, don't you? Angie smiled and big dimples appeared on her face. No wonder Daddy liked you. Yes, I take clients to lunch and eat. Now I'll tell Mary we're leaving, and then we can go out to lunch. I watched her get up. She was a very pleasant-looking woman. She had looks and character that you don't often find in a lawyer. We went to lunch and went into a very nice, quiet restaurant. After ordering lunch, she told me about meeting my parole officer. She said he was a pretty decent person, but I would have to follow the rules and stay out of trouble. I was to meet with him twice a month for a few months, and then once a month for the rest of the year. Angie, you know everything about me. Will you tell me something about yourself? Ray, I don't think it would be appropriate to talk to you about my personal life. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, and I love looking at your dimples when you smile. Ray, please, I told you I don't date clients, but thanks for the compliments. She couldn't help but blush. Tell me about your legal education. It's a business. I have a right to know that as a client. She tried to hold back a smile. Okay, Ray, I have a law degree that I got from the university on a scholarship. I've been an attorney for several years now. My specialty is criminal law. Lunch came and we ate. I couldn't help it. Angie was on my mind. Will I see you again, Angie? You'll actually have to come back next week to fill out the paperwork you got from your parole officer. Why don't we have lunch again? I'll even buy you a treat. I noticed she softened a little. Okay, but this lunch is just to discuss business. She couldn't help but smile. After lunch, we went back to the office. When she held out her hand to say goodbye, I held it in both of my hands for a few seconds. I wondered what she was thinking. I hoped she didn't think I was some kind of freak. We said goodbye, and I told her I was already looking forward to lunch next week. Her secretary took one look at her and smiled. I guess clients don't see their attorneys that often. But then again, most attorneys weren't like Angie. I went back to work and it was really great. In no time at all, I got my work done. I guess it's like riding a bike. You just get on and start riding. Most of the guys I used to work with were still there. It was like they had a newfound respect for me. Nobody was messing with me. The next 2 Mondays in a row, I had an appointment with Angie. She was trying to maintain a business relationship, but I wanted to learn more about her. On the 4th week of our communication, she told me that we had ended our business relationship. Are you still my lawyer? I asked. Of course, if you have any problems, all you have to do is call me, she said. Angie, I'm afraid I have to fire you. I'm very sorry. What? Fire me? What in God's name has gotten into you? I helped you get out of jail and didn't charge you with anything, and you want to fire me? Yeah, you said you weren't going out with your clients, and I want to have a real date with you. I want to take you out to a real dinner and maybe a dance. I want to really get to know you. I know I'm an ex-con and a factory worker, but I want to get to know you better. I think you do too, because for the last 3 weeks, I could have been making phone calls to get the information you asked for. I think you want to see me too. Ray, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. Yes, I'm a little attracted to you, but this is all about ex-convicts and laborers, isn't it? You don't think we should be together? No, that's not it at all. You're my client, I'm your lawyer. What will people think? Who cares? Just come with me once. If you don't like it, you'll know not to go again. Follow your heart. Come with me Saturday night. Look, I know I just got out of jail, and I've been locked up for a while. I don't know where this is going, but I want to give it a chance. Oh God, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'll go once. I'll tell you right now, don't try to get me to sleep with you. Oh God, I can't believe I said that, Angie replied. That Saturday we went for a drive. I borrowed a car from my sister. I didn't want to drive Angie in my old truck. She gave me her address, and it was a townhouse. I knocked on her door, and when she answered, I saw the most gorgeous woman. I know that all men see women differently. In my eyes, she looked stunning and beautiful at the same time. I wanted to grab her and hug her right then and there. I knew I had to be a gentleman, but it wasn't easy. We went to a fancy restaurant and ordered wine and then dinner. After dinner, we decided to talk for a while listening to music. Angie, tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up? You must have been married because your last name is different from your father's. Please tell me about yourself. You know my life like a book. Ray, my dad and mom didn't get along very well. Of course, you know how that ended. Dad's been in prison for 14 years now. My brother and sister and I were raised by aunts and uncles. I'm the youngest, and I was 14 when all this happened. It was very hard on all of us. My brother and sister have never forgiven my father. They love him, but they just can't forgive him. I knew my mom was cheating on him, and I told him about it. I argued with my mom, but she said I was just a kid and didn't know what I was talking about. She said that someday I would really learn about life. Then I told my dad about it. 2 weeks later, he caught her with another man. I partly blame myself. If I had kept quiet, this might not have happened. Angie, you don't know that. You're not responsible for your mom's death or your dad's imprisonment. They were adults and you were a child trying to do the right thing. After my father was sent to prison, I decided that I would go to college and try to become a lawyer, and maybe I could help my father get a lighter sentence. That's why I chose criminal law. Of course, there wasn't much room for maneuvering in my father's case. He was a brilliant lawyer himself and told me he was proud of me, but there wasn't much I could do to help him. Have you been married before, or is it none of my business? I asked Angie. Both. I wasn't married long, and it's none of your business. She smiled at me when she said that. Ray, can we talk about this some other time? I don't want to ruin this evening. I'm having a good time with you. Would you like to dance? I have two left feet, but this will give me a chance to hug you. We stood up and I had the band play a few slow numbers in a row. I took Angie in my arms and we twirled into a dance. I held her close to me and breathed in the scent of her hair. Ray, you should know that I don't go on dates very often. Because of the people I socialize with, I have a pretty big distrust of men. I'm just trying to be honest with you. If my dad hadn't sent you to me, I probably wouldn't be here today. I'll send your father an extra pack of cigarettes. Angie, you're the nicest thing that's ever come my way. I'll do anything to make you trust me. If I step out of line, just tell me and I'll back off. When I took her home that night, I kissed her at the door. After that, she just stared at me. She leaned forward and kissed me again. Can I come in, Angie? No, Ray. Too soon. Too soon. Not today. Will we see you again, say, next Saturday? That might be possible. Call me Thursday. I came home a very happy man. We met the following Saturday and the one after that. She told me more about herself. Ray, I want you to know more about me if we're going to keep dating. I'm not going to hide anything from you. I'm not cut out for this. Like I told you before, I've been married before. It was my freshman year of college. My boyfriend and I decided we loved each other. And, of course, we made love. I got pregnant and we decided to get married. We went to a justice of the peace and he married us. Soon, we both realized that our marriage had failed. We were too young. I had a miscarriage. My husband and I talked it over, realized we had made a mistake and divorced. I kept the last name Brady because my father said I had to do it to distance me from his last name Miller. Of course, that was my maiden name. I was so pleased that she finally confided in me. She asked me about my kids and I told her they wanted to meet her.